First off, we will start with computerized accounting system. What is CIS environment? A CIS environment exists when a computer of any type or size is involved in the processing by the entity of financial information of significance to the audit, whether the computer is operated by the entity or by a third party. What are the examples of CIS environment? First, accounting data. It now includes the electronic equivalents of general ledger, subsidiary ledger, electronic funds transfer, invoices, contracts, and other relevant information of which only available in electronic forms. Electronic messages such as email may replace certain source documents such as purchase order. What are the differences of CIS environment and manual accounting department? First, for CIS environment, an entity and its clients or suppliers use communication link to transact business electronically, and sometimes electronic evidence may exist for only a short time and unable to retrieve it back up files does not exist. These among challenges for auditor in auditing in CIS environment. Whereas, for manual accounting environment, accounting department will accumulate related documents from related departments in order for them to finalize monthly financial statement. Next, in CIS environment, stock information, salary expenses, sales and purchase figure will automatically upload to accounting system by respective departments and account department just to rechecking the correctness and reasonableness of the figures. No document to be printed out like a manual systems. In manual accounting department, information such as depreciation amount, fixed deposit interest income will also automatically update in the system on monthly basis. These are the challenges of CIS environment. It is differ from manual auditing that is audit trail for the amount reported. On top of that, computer calculation on depreciation amount as well as interest income might be wrong and it will be carried the same mistake from month to month until the mistakes are identified. The effect of CIS. These are the potential benefits and potential risks of CIS. For potential benefits, first, it is a consistent application of complex calculations in processing large volumes of transaction data. For example, monthly automate calculated of depreciation amount. Second, enhancement of the timeliness, availability, and accuracy information. Third, facilitation of additional analysis information such as charts and aging. For potential risks, first, reliance on systems or programs that inaccurately process data. Second, unauthorized access to data that may result in destruction of data. Third, unauthorized changes to data in master file and to systems or programs. And last, potential loss of data.
Now, let's move on to the internal control components that are affected by the computerized information system. There are 5 of them. Firstly, assignment of authority and responsibility. It is an important element in internal control. Clear lines of authority and responsibility are important so that the entity's objectives are met. For example, in manual system, each departments are responsible for their own data. However, in computerized information system, the responsible of entities' data are centralized to the administrators. Users from various departments may easily access to a particular database. For example, staff information updated by HR department may be accessed by respective staff to oversee their status. Authorization to access the database is important. Next, human resource policies and practices. In any internal control, competent and trustworthy employees are important matter. In computerized information system environment, an entity needs to have competent staff in related field whether to operate the computer and program as well as who has a skill to monitor the integrity of the data. So here, effective training is essential to ensure the staff possess a required knowledge. Next, information processing. There are two areas in which information processing affected by computerized information system. The first one is authorization of transactions, and the second one is the keeping of adequate documents and records. For authorization of transactions, in manual system, authorization will be done by initials by authorized person on related documents and auditor can see physically. However, in CIS environment, many authorization for transaction may be part of the application program. For example, before transfer monies to suppliers, authorization by authorized signatories will be done electronically in computerized information system. Auditor unable to observe the signatures. While the keeping of adequate documents and records is, when in manual, hard copy of document may be physically available and auditor able to observe. However, in computerized information system environment, hard copy or audit trail may be not available. Next, segregation of duties. In CIS environment, one person may perform the whole process of a transaction from initiation, authorization, and recording the transaction, especially to the small and medium-sized business enterprise. Because for them, it is costly to implement segregation of duties in the situation. Thus, it is important to have adequate control in CIS to compensate this situation. Next, physical control. Physical control over assets and records is important in any type of system. In manual system, physical records may be placed in a room and controlled by one or two staff responsible to keep track the movement of the records. However, in CIS environment, records are stored electronically and can be accessible through the computer terminals. For example, if control over access into the system are not adequate, an employee may able to enter fictitious purchase of goods and fraud may occur. Entity should also have proper backup control for computer programs and data file. Now, move on to types of control in computerized information system environment. They are divided into two, which is general control and application control. General control is related to overall control information processing environment and sometimes referred to supervisory, management, or information technology control. There are four of them. First, data center and network operations. No authorized access to the program's file and system documentation. The operator responsible is to be rotated and the files should be properly maintained and backup. Next, system software acquisition, change, and maintenance control. System software are computer systems that control the computer function and allow the application program to run. For example, Windows allow Microsoft Office to run. Windows is system software and Microsoft Office is application system. The entity should have strong controls to ensure proper approval for purchase of new system, changes, and maintenance of existing software. Next, access security control. These include physical protection of computer equipment, software and data, and also loss of assets and information through theft and unauthorized use. For example, special room for computer and equipment or separate building and accessible to the room or building must be limited to the authorized personnel only. Also includes recovery procedures for lost data. Lastly, application system acquisition, development, and maintenance control. Application system, for example, accounting system. Controls on this is critical for ensuring the reliability of information processing. It might be better to have involvement of internal and external auditors in early stage to design the system to ensure proper control incorporated to the system. In this general control, auditors need to review the design of the general controls before reviewing the application controls. Last but not least, I'm going to talk about the application control. Application control apply to the processing of individual accounting applications such as sales or payroll, and these control help to ensure the completeness and accuracy of transaction processing, authorization, and validity. First, control over input. It is to ensure the transactions properly authorized before being processed by the computer. Secondly, to ensure transactions are accurately converted into machine-readable form and recorded in the computer data files. Third, to ensure that transactions are not lost, added, duplicated, and modified. And lastly, to ensure incorrect transactions are rejected correctly and resubmit. Next, control over processing and computer data files. It is to ensure that all transactions key in being processed by the computer and data files are properly stored. Processing errors are identified and correctly by the timely basis. And the last one is control over output. It is designed to provide reasonable assurance that results of processing are accurate, access to output is restricted to authorized personnel, and the last one is output is provided to appropriate authorized personnel on a timely basis.
Next, we're going to talk about computer-assisted audit techniques, or in short, it is called as CAAT. This CAAT is normally used by big audit firms for their big clients. So the first one, according to ISA 401, CAAT is very useful in the case of these two conditions. The first one is when there is the absence of input document or having a lack of visible audit trail, and the second one is where the use of CAAT will improve the effectiveness and the efficiency of auditing. Move on to the next part, which is the common type of CAAT. There are two types of CAAT. First one is audit software. Audit software are computer programs used for audit purpose to examine the content of client files. And then it is divided into two: package programs or generalized audit software, GAS, and the second type is written program or custom audit software. The next common type of CAAT is test data. It is defined as the data used by the auditor to test the operation of the enterprise computer program. Next one is, what are the factors that auditor will need to consider in deciding whether they want to use CAAT or not? So they might be considering to use CAAT if, first one, if there is no visible evidence available, and CAAT is their last choice. The second one is that the extent of the ability of CAAT to perform tests on various financial statements, the costs related to CAAT, when auditor need to produce report in the short time period, and lastly, the condition of hardware and ability to support CAAT. What are the potential benefits of using CAAT? How it benefits the audit firm? First one, if they are using CAAT, they will be able to save time. And then they will be able to audit large volume. And then they have lesser manual procedures. They will be able also to eliminate manual and cross-casting. And lastly, the auditor doesn't need to be physically present at the client's office.
Now, we move to the consideration in the use of CAAT. The first consideration is IT knowledge, expertise, and experience of the audit team. SA S310 stated that auditing in a computer information systems environment deal with the level of skill and competence the audit team needs to conduct an audit in an IT environment. It provides guidance when auditors delegate work to assistants with IT skills or when the auditors use work performed by the auditors or experts with such skills. Specifically, the audit team would need to have sufficient knowledge to plan, execute, and use the results of the particular CAAT adopted. The level of knowledge required depends on the complexity and nature of the CAAT and of the entity's information system. Second consideration is availability of CAAT and suitable computer facilities. In this consideration, the auditors may plan to use other computer facilities when the use of CAAT on an entity's computer is uneconomical or impractical. Additionally, the auditors may elect to use their own facilities, such as PCs or laptops. The cooperation of the entity's personnel may be required to provide processing facilities at a convenient time to assist with activities such as loading and running of the CATs on the entity systems and to provide copies of data files in the format required by the auditor. Now we move to the fourth consideration in the use of CAT, which is impracticability of manual tests. Some audit procedures may not be possible to perform manually because they rely on complex processing or involve amounts of data that will overwhelm any manual procedure. In addition, many computer information systems perform tasks for which no hard copy evidence is available and therefore it may be impracticable for the auditors to perform tests manually. The lack of hard copy evidence may occur at different stages in the business cycle. Source information may be initiated electronically, such as by voice activation, electronic data imaging, or point-of-sale electronic funds transfer. Secondly, a system may not produce a visible audit trail providing assurance as to the completeness and accuracy of transaction process. Third, a system may not produce hard copy reports. The fourth consideration is effectiveness and efficiency. The effectiveness and efficiency of auditing procedures may be improved by using CAATs to obtain and evaluate audit evidence. CAATs are often an efficient means of testing a large number of transactions or controls over a large population by analyzing and selecting samples from a large volume of transactions, applying analytical procedures, and performing substantive procedures. Meanwhile, matters relating to efficiency that auditors might consider include the time taken to plan, design, execute, and evaluate a CAT, technical review and assistant hours, designing and printing of forms, and availability of computer resources. Last but not least, the timing also can take into the consideration in the use of CAT. Certain data, such as transaction details, are often kept for only a short time and may not be available in machine-readable form by the time the auditors want them. Thus, the auditors will need to make arrangements for the retention of data required or may need to alter the timing of the work that requires such data. Where the time available to perform an audit is limited, the auditors may plan to use a CAT because its use will meet the auditor's time requirement better than other possible procedures. Now we move to the next subtopic, which is auditing software. Auditing software that can be used are: first, Audit Express. This module is designed not only to help reduce costs and increase operational efficiency, it also assists you to address the major elements of a good system of quality control as required by the quality control standards. The system captures and analyzes client financial data, transforming it into a ready platform so that you can concentrate on the real audit. It smartly links audit working papers to annual reports and thereby improve both the speed and quality of undertaking an audit engagement. The second auditing software is SCL, which is also known as Audit Command Language. SCL is a data analysis software program that helps auditors remain current with changing technology. Its primary usefulness lies in its ability to perform analysis and audit tests on 100% of the data available rather than merely sampling the data. The ability to audit 100% of the available data assists auditors with identifying potential fraud patterns and data irregularities. Last but not least, the auditing software that can be used is IDEA, which is also known as Interactive Data Extraction and Analysis. IDEA provides audit, finance, and compliance professionals in industry and practice with an efficient and effective solution for high-performance audit. IDEA also used by tax authorities throughout the world to interrogate taxpayer transactions and system data.
For the last part of the topic, we are going to talk about test data. What is a test data? Test data involves auditor preparation of a series of fictitious transactions. Many of those transactions will contain intentional errors. The auditor examines the result and determines whether the errors were detected by the client system. Test transactions should test every possible input error, logical process, and irregularity. The questions asked in test data usually are control procedures functioning, or is the computer application processing transactions correctly? Now, the approaches in test data. First, using live data. It processes client real-life data and then check that the controls and processing are okay. Second, dummy data in a normal production run. Output of dummy data processing should not be released in the live database general ledger. Third, dummy data in a special run. Dummy data is run backup or image copy of database. Types of test data. First, BCSE, also known as Best Case System Evaluation. It is a special case of test data that requires an all-inclusive set of test data in order to test every possible data and processing condition. This method is time-consuming and expensive, and best developed by an internal audit staff. Second is tracing. It is a test data technique that takes step-by-step walk through application. The trace option must be enabled for the application. Specific data or types of transaction are created as test data. And test data is traced through all processing steps of the application, and a listing is produced of all lines of code as executed. For the advantages of test data, first, it requires limited technical knowledge. Second, usually fairly simple to operate. And it helps the auditor learn how the system operates. And there are disadvantages of test data, which is first, the cost. The cost for constructing test data predetermine the results manually and ascertaining which controls to be tested. Second, it confined to tests of control only. Third, live testing is dangerous as it may affect live database, which is used for special run. Fourth, no visible evidence of audit work performed. They need to record in the working papers of work done. Now we move on to the electronic commerce effect on the audit of financial statements. When e-commerce has a significant effect on the entity's business, appropriate levels of both information technology and internet business knowledge may be required to understand the financial statements, determine the nature, timing, and extent of audit procedures and evaluate audit evidence, and consider the effect of the entity's dependence on e-commerce activities on its ability to continue as going concern. ISA 310 requires that the auditor obtain a knowledge of the business sufficient to enable the auditor to identify and understand the events, transactions, and practices that may have a significant effect on the financial statements or on the audit report. The auditor's knowledge of the business is fundamental to assessing the significance of e-commerce to the entity's business activities and any effect on the audit risk.
The auditor considers changes in the entity's business environment attributable to e-commerce and e-commerce business risks as identified so far as they affect the financial statements. In obtaining or updating knowledge of the entity's business, the auditor considers so far as they affect the financial statements: first, the entity's business activities in industry; second, the entity's e-commerce strategy; third, the extent of the entity's e-commerce activities; and the entity's outsourcing arrangements. As for the risk identification, management faces many business risks relating to the entity's e-commerce activities, which includes: first, loss of transaction integrity, the effects of which may be compounded by the lack of an adequate audit trail in either paper or electronic form. Second, pervasive e-commerce security risks, including virus attacks and the potential for the entity to suffer fraud by customers, employees, and others through unauthorized access. Third, non-compliance with taxation and other legal and regulatory requirements. Fourth, failure to ensure that contracts evidence only by electronic, and systems and infrastructure failures. The entity addresses certain business risks arising in e-commerce through the implementation of an appropriate security, infrastructure, and related controls. The auditor uses the knowledge of the business obtained to identify those events, transactions, and practices related to business risks arising from the entity's e-commerce activities that, in the auditor's judgment, may result in a material misstatement of the financial statements or have a significant effect on the auditor's procedures or the auditor's report. Legal or regulatory issues that may be particularly relevant in an e-commerce environment include adherence to national and international privacy requirements, adherence to national and international requirements for regulated industries, the enforceability of contracts, the risk of money laundering, and violation of intellectual property rights. And for the internal control considerations, there are three, which is first, security. The entity's security infrastructure and related controls are a particularly important feature of its internal control system when external parties are able to access the entity's information system using a public network such as the Internet. Second, transaction integrity. The auditor considers the completeness, accuracy, timeliness, and authorization of information provided for recording and processing in the entity's financial records. Audit procedures regarding the integrity of information in the accounting system relating to e-commerce transactions are largely concerned with evaluating the reliability of the systems in use for capturing and processing such information. And last, the process alignment. The process alignment refers to the way various IT systems are integrated with one another and thus operate in effect as one system. In the e-commerce environment, it is important that transactions generated from an entity's website are processed properly by the entity's internal system. And last but not least, the effect of electronic commerce records on audit evidence. There may not be any paper records for e-commerce transactions, and electronic records may be more easily destroyed or altered than paper records without leaving evidence of such destruction or alteration. The auditor considers whether the entity's security of information policies and security controls as implemented are adequate to prevent unauthorized changes to the accounting system or records, or to systems that provide data to the accounting system. The auditor may test automated controls such as record integrity checks, electronic date stamps, digital signatures, and version controls when considering the integrity of electronic evidence. That's all from us. Bye-bye.